Hey there, I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of the website techinterview.guide, and I'm here to help people with career advancement and interview preparation. My live stream on Twitch covers topics such as company research, how to build resumes and cover letters, applying for the job, getting through interviews, and what to do during negotiations. I've coached thousands and thousands of people over the years to get jobs at the biggest tech companies in the industry, and I'm here to help you too. The following episode is taken from a longer live stream event and may contain interactions with other people in chat. Check out the end of the episode for more information. Let's get to it.
All right, so Epiccat gave us this job post that we're going to go through and critique here. So let's see, Epiccat said something else in chat, I thought. You have to scroll down a little bit to get to the job. Okay, so this is Talentful. Talentful is inventing the future of recruitment by offering cutting-edge solutions that help high-growth technology companies hire the best talent. So this company is building solutions that help other companies hire people that like to do their job. Okay, so our experienced talent experts act as a flexible on-site extension of in-house. So they're basically staff augmentation for recruiting via a monthly subscription to ensure best cultural matches and outstanding recruitment experiences for top talent companies. So this is what we call staff augmentation. So there are companies that will hire developers to be staff augmentation. So let's say I run one of these companies, I hire Epiccat, and then I sort of rent out Epiccat to my clients to say, oh, Epicat's a developer, you need a developer, I'm going to let Epiccat work on your project for you, and you can pay me a bunch of money. And so this company, Talentful, is basically doing the same thing, but for recruiters. So they're helping with everything from hiring to process reviews, event strategy, diversity workshops. That's great that they're putting in that kind of effort. Helping many of the top companies, including Alphabet, which is Google, Microsoft, Deliveroo, never heard of them. Heard of Pinterest, Atlassian, never heard of Monzo. Expedia, they're still around. Instacart, Miro is pretty cool. Many more, cool. So they've got some good names on here. Talentful has built a global team in London, Berlin, New York. Okay, cool. Well, let's dive down. So this is what we're looking for. We're looking for a software engineer with 8+ years experience to join our front-end engineering efforts at Talentful. We are embarking on a mission to invent the future of recruiting to change the status quo. All right, well, let's start with this. So about a decade ago is really when things started to really truly split into back-end and front-end, where we started seeing a lot more front-end frameworks sort of popping up, and people started specializing just in user experience and user interfaces, what we call UX and UI. And so they're looking for someone that's been around kind of since that split where you have totally focused and dedicated on that front-end engineering. We're embarking on a mission to invent the future of recruiting. Let's zoom in on that a bit more for you. Whoa, that's annoying. No, let's at least get rid of that. There we go. We're embarking on a mission to invent the future of recruiting. Okay. You'll be one of our first engineers. Uh-oh. To me, that's a bit of a flag when they say you're going to be the first or one of the first. That's not a great situation to be in if you're looking for help or mentorship, but that's also why they're looking for a senior level person, because they want you to come in and kind of lead and take charge and tell them this is what you should be doing. So they want someone that's going to have enough experience to step into the role and say this is how things should be done based on your level of experience. It's not saying you will be the first. You're going to be one of our first engineers on this mission. And you'll be reporting directly to the CPTO. Interesting. Chief PTO. What's the PTO? Principal Technology Officer? I've never heard of a CPTO. I've heard of C3PO, and I've heard of CTO, but I haven't heard of CPTO. This is a fully remote position. Almost anywhere in North America or Canada. Last time I checked, Canada was part of North America. So if you're saying almost anywhere in North America, this makes it sound like they just care about America or Canada. So why not just be more explicit about this? This is a weird sort of thing to tack on here, especially considering up here that they're all about diversity and so on. But down here, they're okay, maybe not if you live in Central America or Mexico or something, but we're going to explicitly say North America or Canada. It's weird. to say that this to say that this company helps with job posts and helps make this kind of thing better. This is not off to a great start. If I were looking at this as a hiring manager going, should I hire Talentful? Looking at something like this, I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Jerry McGuire's asking, so is this like a temporary job? Not necessarily. So if I were to run a consulting business, I might hire Jerry full-time, and you are my employee full-time. I pay your salary, I pay your benefits, but then I rent you out to do other things. Now, companies will do that kind of thing for all kinds of work, whether it's development work, marketing, sales, in this case, recruiting. There's lots of opportunity. Well, Talentful, like they hire people out to do recruiting. Now, as a business, I'm going to figure out like what's my salary hourly rate for you. So if I hire you at $100,000 a year, that's $50 an hour. I'm going to charge my client probably $150 to $200 an hour. So I'm more than making up for your salary and benefits and taxes and whatever. But then as a business, I'm also making money. But then that company is going to expect $200 an hour worth of effort out of you when you're only getting paid $50 an hour. So they're going to be like putting pressure on you. So sometimes if you're working on like at their location, it can put a little extra pressure on you. Anyway, so as an engineer on the team, you'll be building an easy to use, highly performant, visually appealing product. So highly performant, I mean, from a front end point of view, there are things that you can do to make things very performant, make them very fast, have good user experiences. But as a front-end developer, you're going to be tying into a lot of back-end services that you may not have control over because you're joining the front-end engineering team. And so you're only going to be able to control the aspect of what happens in the browser. And the browser is using your end user's CPU and RAM. And so the performance of it is going to depend on who your target is. If they show up on your website and they're using a really slow computer, their experience is going to be worse than somebody who visits your website with a really fast computer. And so you do need to like think about performance as you're writing your code and how long things actually take to render on the screen. Having 8 years of experience, you'll have seen a lot of this and see a lot of ways of improving this. Visually appealing, that's not really a front-end developer's job. That's a designer's job. It's just your job to make that, sort of visual design happen in a browser. So I'm already like, it's not my job as a front-end engineer to make it visually appealing. Like, I need someone else to actually make the design. I'll go implement that design. So hopefully they've got a designer on the team. To change how companies grow their teams. All right, you'll contribute to a collaborative and learning team culture. Okay, good. Where everybody pitches in wherever help is needed. So they're hiring you as a full-time front-end engineer, but they're saying, but we're going to expect that you're going to like work on potentially other things if we need it. So if you've got 8 years of experience, you're going to be pretty flexible. And so helping out wherever it's needed, yeah, that's probably fine. My worry, though, is they're going to be like, all right, we need someone to actually do the visual design aspect. So, Ian, you're our front end guy, so you're going to be working on the visual designs. Like, I could draw stick figures. That's the extent of my visual design. But if you give me, like, something that you want me to design, I'll go implement that. Like, if you can draw what you want it to be, like, I can go make that. But I'm not going to be good at the design side of it. Wherever help is needed, and both teaches and learns from others without ego. I love this. I think this is fantastic. So the company as a whole, part of their culture is to learn from one another and to share knowledge with one another. And that's what this whole channel is all about. My whole tagline in this channel for Tech Interview Guide is share what you know and we all win. And this company seems to embody that, which is great. You'll be spending a large part of your day writing code as part of a 7-person engineering team by the end of 2022. Well, how big is it now? That would be my question. They want to hire 7 people. They're telling you up here you're going to be one of the first. So how many of these people have they already hired? Like, are you going to end up being the first front-end engineer and then they're going to have like, eventually have others? This is a pretty good balance. 4 front-end engineers, 3 back-end engineers. I would prefer to be like 3 and 3 and have like 1 full stack that can float in between the two to help out. How we strive to work. Don't be annoying. Don't be easily annoyed. All right. Bring the person you want to be to work. All right. That's interesting for sure. Hey, B Whiskey. Thanks for dropping by. Midnight Smith says Canada doesn't want to be lumped in the USA with the same continent. I can't blame them. As a Canadian, yeah, I could agree with that for sure. Chief Product and Technology Officer. Oh, thanks for looking that up. Need more coffee. Appreciate that. Canada must be north of South America. That's great. I hadn't heard that one, but that's great. Don't be annoying comes off as being rude. Yeah, and unwelcoming. Could be. Yeah, and the fact that that's the very first thing that they tell you makes me think that they've had this in the past and they want to be careful to protect against that. So this might be like an internal culture kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, we'll jump in here on some other stuff. So design matters, user experience matters most. Programming is a team sport. We ship daily, we rest daily. Unused code is debt. That's not the only technical debt that you have. So when we talk about technical debt, we think about like accruing debt, like a credit card that you don't pay off kind of thing. And it's not just that unused code is debt. It's also code that someone else has written that they no longer want to maintain or that nobody knows how it works, but it is being used. That's also considered technical debt because it takes a lot longer to figure out later, like how do we make a change to this so we're confident that if we change this code, it's not going to break like 50 other things. The Midnight Smith says, oh, hey, you're Canadian? Yep. I've looked at the immigration requirements, but if my company has a branch in the States and I transfer, could I then get residency after a time? Maybe. I'll address that a little bit later. But yeah, I came down to the States in 2000. I got my citizenship in 2019. So I was here for a long time before I got citizenship. But yeah, I can chat about my experience with that later. Quality is not a variable, only time or scope. So they're really big on like quality really matters here. So only time and scope are variables. Well, having scope as a variable, that basically means like we can change what we want you to do at any time. The amount of time it takes is also going to change, but quality is like first and foremost. I don't like that they're like big on, oh, you know, we're going to change the scope of what it is we want you to do. We're going to change the requirements of what we want you to do. That is allowed to be a variable thing. At some point, you do need to firm that up so you can actually go implement it. Kanban, not Scrum. That's fine. Code, not estimates. Okay. So this is basically saying like, we don't want to know how long it's going to take. We just want you to go do the work, which is, yeah, that's part of the job, but you also have to give them some expectation of this is going to take a week to do, this is going to take a month to do. So I think there is value in having some of that. Debate over deliberation. Yep. We like discussions and problem solving with our teammates live. So they're telling you you can be fully remote, but they would prefer to have meetings synchronously. They don't want asynchronous check-ins. So if you've got something to discuss with a teammate, they would rather have it in a live meeting because the pace of that will happen much faster instead of an asynchronous sort of like chat or email or a Slack thread or something like that. The downside to doing it live is you need to have somebody transcribing like what was said or have it recorded so that you can go back later and say, well, Ian said he was going to do such and such by this or that date, or he was going to implement this or that in this particular way. That's the nice thing about having asynchronous things is that you've got notes that you can kind of fall back on. We have daily stand-ups daily on Zoom. Yep, I already mentioned that. We're present when we're present, and the Zoom camera is on. This is already exclusionary to some people who are introverted or deal with anxiety. This is already going to exclude a bunch of people. Forcing people to have the camera on in Zoom every time you meet. This is actually quite draining. This is something that I hope the company would be flexible on. Tickets are for tracking, not discussion. Then where are you having that discussion? Where are you keeping track of the notes of what you want to do and what you want to change? I get you want to have those meetings live, but you need that written down somewhere. And if that's not as part of the ticket, then where are you writing that stuff? If it's blocked, unblock it. Well, if it's blocked, like if I'm a front-end developer and something's blocked on the back end, I can't unblock back end if I'm not a back end developer. Waiting is losing. Well, if I got to wait for that back end developer to finish building out an API endpoint so that I can finish doing my work, I'm blocked. Like, I'll find something else to do, but I can't unblock it. Some of this language in here comes across a little aggressive to me. like the culture of this feels a little bit aggressive. How we strive to develop. If AWS solves it, we use it. All right, they're putting all their eggs in a single basket. What if AWS goes down? Your whole business goes down. Feature flags over branches. Okay, interesting. Yep, I like that. Feature flags are a good thing, and we talked a little bit about that in our last stream. You write some code, you write some tests. Yes, I like that. Preferably in the other order. I like writing tests first and then writing code. Key value stores over relational databases. There are times and places where you want to use relational databases, but key value stores, fine. We'll go look at at what they're building in a minute. We instrument and monitor all the things. Excellent. You need to have observability to know like how things are operating. Remote development environments. Well, you already told me that you're working remote, but a remote development environment usually means that your IDE and everything is online as well. So I'd be curious what kind of tooling they use for that. So TypeScript, React, GraphQL, GitHub, AWS, Slack, Gmail, Google Docs. In testing, they use Coda and all the rest to be determined. Okay, this is a pretty good tech stack. GraphQL is going to work well for a lot of teams. GraphQL, though, could be connected to a relational database. So telling me you want to do a key value store but use a relational database, can you even use GraphQL on a NoSQL database? Can we use GraphQL over Mongo? Yep, apparently you can. Okay. I've only ever used GraphQL with relational databases. About you, you love software engineering, the profession, the craft. You care about the user, usability, performance, reliability. Well, you already told me up above here that quality matters most, user experience matters most, but down here, this is point number 2. So if quality and user experience is really utmost, this should be the first bullet point. You're driven to ship code. You care about modern programming practices like behavior-driven development, extreme programming. Again, this can be a little bit aggressive if not done well. You're a constant learner with an open mind. Yep. Strongly believe engineering is always in service of delivering great experiences. So you've already told us this like several times in your job post. It's starting to feel a little redundant. You balance when you need to write deeply tested bulletproof code and when you just need to ship. So this tells me they don't practice test-driven development. Behavior-driven development is like, what should the end user see? And I do agree with some of this. There are some core features that absolutely must work 100% of the time, and that code needs to be very strongly tested. But they're saying, like, you know, if there's some things that you don't have to test, like, don't worry about writing test code. But that also starts to reduce the confidence that you have overall in the code, but okay. I do agree with the first part. This second part, again, they're worried more about, like, let's get the product done, let's get the product out, let's keep people using it and paying for it. But being part of an engineering team where I know not everything is tested doesn't give me 100% confidence, where they say up here, you ship daily and rest daily. I'm not going to be able to rest very well. Me, myself. This is just because of my own practice and my own experience, having done this like about 15 years ago, where you're constantly writing code that's not tested and putting it in production. I lost a lot of sleep. I lost a lot of rest trying to do that, where you're pushing code that isn't tested because you don't know whether it's actually going to work or not. So far, though, like, this is pretty lightweight as far as like who we want you to be to come join our team. This list is starting to feel really long though. So again, they want somebody with 8+ years experience. So you regularly, happily, and successfully help others come up to speed on code base and programming techniques. Yep, okay. You built a number of horizontally scalable, high performance services in your time. Well, if you're a front-end developer, you haven't done service development. You've done application development. So this is already incongruent. This doesn't line up with what they want the job post to be. They want you to be a front-end developer. You're not going to be building horizontally scalable like services or microservices. This doesn't fit with the job description. Horizontally scalable is basically we can drop in additional hardware and it's just going to work. with front-end frameworks, that is going to happen no matter what, because they're doing local storage probably on the user's computer to some degree, but they're also just talking to back-end APIs. So yeah, you can drop in as much hardware as you need if you start seeing the bottleneck is actually accessing the server to retrieve your front-end application. But once you retrieve that JavaScript, it's running on the user's computer. It's not really a horizontal scale thing at this point for the front-end development. Horizontal scale is going to be more for the back end, because you can have all these front-end clients hitting your API, and that needs to scale well. This is a back-end developer bullet point. This is not a front-end developer bullet point. You've worked on many microservices and have authored a fair number from scratch. That's not a front-end developer's job. You've handled countless on-call incidents, debugged and remediated plenty of production issues in the past decade. So again, this is kind of playing back on the whole like ship quickly, get it out there. And by the way, I hope you're cool with being on call. Well, if you would let me write tests, we could reduce the on-call time. So that's where I would want to be pushing, like, hey, you know, if we spent more time writing tests, we would spend less time being on call, and then we could actually rest daily like you tell us you want us to do. So there are a couple of things in here that are a little off for sure. HFW says in chat, honestly, this sounds a little bit like sink or swim. I agree. Really weird to have horizontal scale when front end is being run on a local browser. Exactly. Yep. And when you think about it, I mean, it is horizontally scaled because every user you got coming in is another sort of system running your code. Let's see, what else? It took 19 years to get citizenship? No, I'll chat about that a little bit later. Oh, Midnight Smith wants to move to Canada from the States. Okay. Yeah, we can chat about that. Cool. So you've added instrumentation to Codebase. Yep. And there's lots of tooling out there for doing that kind of stuff like New Relic and Datadog and so on. You're all in on asynchronous programming models. If you're doing front-end development, everything's pretty much going to be async these days. You've read a bunch of articles on software engineering practices and tooling in the past month. So this could come up in the interview and say like, hey, you know, what have you read? How are you staying up to date? You know, how are you working on these technologies and so on? 4+ years working with AWS because they are all in on AWS, so you're going to have to know that really well. You've worked frequently with DynamoDB, SNS, and SQS, so simple queuing service. I forget what SNS is. They've got so many, you know, simple something service kind of thing. I'd have to go look that one up myself. You used HTTP caching technologies to solve plenty of problems. I mean, that's just like content delivery networks at this point. And you wrote production level code this week. Yeah, I mean, generally this is fine. Except for these 2 bullet points. These 2 bullet points don't belong. And this one, like having been at a job, well, at several jobs where I've been on call all the time, this doesn't make me feel good. I mean, the fact that you're going to be one of the first developers on the team, and it's going to be a relatively small team. If I were the engineering manager, I would say, okay, we're going to have 7 people on the team, so you're on call 1 week every 7. But if you're a front-end developer and something crashes on the back end, how are you supposed to fix that? Well, down here, they were basically talking about, like, you're going to jump in and, like, it was somewhere in here, like, you're going to jump in and help change things, like, wherever help is needed. So if you're on call and something on the back end crashes, you better know how to fix it. Well, now you're looking for 7 full-stack developers and not explicit discipline of, like, front-end versus back-end. So to me, this feels like they really hope to find full stack people that can do all the things all the time, all the ways. So yeah, we recognize our people are our strongest asset, diverse skills they bring as an equal opportunity. We don't discriminate on the basis. Okay. So there are a handful of things in here that sort of stand out as like, this is strange. But from an equality point of view, I think generally this does okay because they don't mention things like education requirements. All they're asking is 8 years of experience. This is the only strong requirement that they have, but they're not asking about like, have you worked at a top company? Have you, you know, do you have a particular kind of education background? They're just asking for straight up work experience. And they're going to want to see like a progression in that work experience and want to know like down here at the bottom, they were asking like you've shipped code recently, you know about testing, you know about behavior-driven development, You've worked, very recently with Amazon. You've worked very recently on, things like instrumentation and asynchronous models. And that, I like that their number one point is like, you're going to share your knowledge with the rest of the team. Again, part of my thinking is they want to do that so that you're sharing that knowledge with one another so that anybody can fill in for anybody, because you're all going to be on call working on all the same code. And the fact that they've got these 2 bullet points in a front-end developer description tells me that they're really looking for full stack developers. And so my thinking, this is my thought on this, I think Talentful is going to look at all these resumes coming in, and they're going to be screening internally for full stack developers, and those are going to be the first people to get phone calls. If you can do both front end and back end, if you can demonstrate that you can do front end development and back end development, I think you're going to get priority on interviews at this company. That's just my thought, given this job post.
Thanks for checking that out. I hope that you found it helpful. I always appreciate feedback, so please let me know what you think. I appreciate any subscriptions, so please tell your friends and colleagues about it as well. Check out the website techinterview.guide for more information about when I'm live streaming and all of my free content. Drop by a live stream anytime to ask questions or message me privately, whatever makes you most comfortable. See you next time.